polling. Tonight on The Wrap, it's no longer a two-horse race. A last frantic day of campaigning ahead of tomorrow's elections as Reform and the Greens look to make gains at the expense of Labour and the Conservatives. Donald Trump says the war will end if Iran agrees to a deal, but threatens more strikes if they don't.
We'll see whether or not they are agreeing. And if they don't agree, they'll end up agreeing shortly thereafter. So that's the way it is.
2 people are self-isolating in the UK after returning from the cruise ship at the centre of the deadly hantavirus outbreak. Could a bird-watching trip to a landfill site be the source of the virus? Plus, no pints before flights. The Ryanair boss wants to ban breakfast beers at the airport. But is it an idea that could actually take off? Well, we discuss the day's biggest stories with Lucy Fisher and Adam Bolton. Plus, a first look at the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers, including claims that Sir Keir Starmer is planning a policy blitz with Labour braced for record losses in the elections. Well, hello and good evening to you. And Lucy, Adam, welcome to you both as well. So this time tomorrow night, the polls will have just closed in the biggest set of elections since the 2024 general election. 5,000 seats on 136 local councils in England are up for grabs. Voters in Scotland and Wales will elect representatives to their national parliaments. Reform UK and the Greens are expected to make gains at the expense of Labour and the Tories, with mounting pressure on Sir Keir Starmer. But his deputy, Lucy Powell, has told Sky News today she backs the Prime Minister. Well, Lucy, Adam, what an extraordinary set of election results we're going to get on multiple days, overnight Thursday, Friday, even Saturday.
Well, absolutely. And for me, it feels like this could potentially be a real milestone in the death of the two-party system in this country and the UK as a whole entering this fragmented multi-party system, with Reform and the Greens expected to do incredibly well and celebrating this weekend. Of course, I think attention will immediately turn to Keir Starmer's future. He faces a very dicey weekend and week ahead. But if he can hold on then, I think the pressure isn't going to abate for the rest of this year. It's going to be a tough time for him to try and reset his premiership with so few levers available to him.
Adam?
Well, we know for sure the two-party system is already over in Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland. That, I think, is going to be confirmed. The prospect of 3 nationalist governments in the other nations, that certainly, I think, will affect Westminster politics quite severely. As far as the local elections go, we just heard that high expectations for the Greens and for Reform UK. One thing perhaps worth remembering is, while people are talking about what impact will this have on the future of Keir Starmer, a year or so ago they were saying, well, could be curtains for Kemi Badenoch as well, and that doesn't seem to be the Westminster chat at the moment.
Yes, well, certainly plenty more to dissect in a moment. First of all, though, let's listen to our political editor, Beth Rigby, on the final day of campaigning ahead of polling.
Out on the campaign trail for the final day ahead of a set of elections that could be truly seismic as our traditional two-party system splits apart. Thank you. Tory leader Kemi Badenoch getting out in London boroughs that were once true blue. But she's struggling to drive a Conservative recovery, her party heading for big losses across the country.
What we're seeing is the era of two-party politics moving into multi-party politics. There are no safe seats for any party. We all have to work hard for every vote. What will be a disaster is seeing more Labour, more Lib Dems, more Green, more Reform, because none of these people are serious. The only party that is serious and that has a plan, not just for local councils, but for the country, is the Conservatives.
But voters are serious in their disdain for the two traditional parties, and this man is about to do serious damage.
Vote Reform, get Starmer out. If you want real change in national government and in the approach to local government, we are the change option, and we're on that ballot paper in 99.9% of wards across the United Kingdom. And you know what? We're the only true national party. We're campaigning in all parts of the UK. And I think you're going to be surprised how much enthusiasm there is for our message.
Enthusiasm too for the Green Party. Zach Polanski looking to hurt Labour in inner London.
Tonight and tomorrow we have the campaign of our life. And I want to talk about hope. But before I get to hope, I want to talk about the other side for a moment, which is despair. So let's talk about Labour.
Work in the wealthy commuter belt, Ed Davey trained on the Tories as the Lib Dems eye hundreds more gains.
We really are pushing the Tories back. I think people are turning to us. And interestingly, these fights are increasingly between the Liberal Democrats and Reform, because people remember how dreadful the Conservatives were, and they're either coming to back Liberal Democrats or some going to Reform.
And it's not just England where Labour and the Conservatives are taking a hammering. In Wales, Plaid Cymru looked to wrest control of the Senedd from Labour. For the first time in nearly 3 decades of devolution, this would be a massive moment. In Scotland, Labour have lost all hope from winning Holyrood back from the SNP. This time around, the party's hoping not to be pushed into third by Reform.
Out leading from the front, I think you've got...
Labour in turmoil, embracing for punishment at the polls. The deputy leader urging the party to stick with Starmer.
We have made some mistakes. We've needed to be set out a clearer sense of direction and a clearer purpose. I think we've started to see that coming through, and I'm pleased about that. But, you know, these elections are coming round faster than that.
What I'm getting to is that you keep saying we, but isn't it that people are really upset with Keir Starmer?
Look, Keir is the leader of the Labour Party, so of course he gets the most stick of everybody. There's no question of that.
Well, he makes the decisions.
And he doesn't make all the decisions, but obviously he takes full responsibility for the decisions of the Labour Party and of the government. And he's been the first to admit where he has made mistakes, whether it was the appointment of Peter Mandelson, whether it was around the winter fuel payments, you know, that's still an issue sometimes on the doorstep with pensioners as well.
But do you think he is the right leader to lead this change agenda?
Yes.
You do?
Yeah.
These elections will perhaps be looked back on as the moment where Britain broke with its two-party system that's dominated our politics for the past century. We'll potentially have national parliaments in Wales and Scotland led by national parties as Reform rips up Labour and Tory dominance in English councils, whilst the Greens march on Labour London. And as for the governing party, Labour could be heading for its worst ever local election performance as voters give their first real ballot box verdict on Starmer's government. It's going to be ugly for Labour. How bloody it gets for Starmer depends on how his cabinet and his party react. The PM hitting the phones to voters ahead of the polls. When the results land, his next job will be to persuade his MPs to stay with him. But that's his party's call, not his. Beth Rigby, Sky News, Bury.
Well, Adam, as Lucy pointed out, this really is a judgment on the old two-party system. It's a verdict, too, on the Prime Minister and his government. Does it matter that Lucy Powell, in Beth's report there, is backing him for now? Do you think we will see a reshuffle next week or some other way that Keir Starmer will flex his power, whatever is left of it?
Well, conventional wisdom, which I always question, but it seems to be moving towards believing that no one is going to launch a challenge against Keir Starmer, whatever happens. There was some speculation that Wes Streeting might be thinking about it. He remains the one to watch, but the signals coming from Angela Rayner, who of course still has to sort out her tax affairs, and from Lucy Powell there, is that the soft left, if you like, don't see the need for a contest now. There's clearly an element of waiting for Andy Burnham to get back in one way or another. Now, what we can read in the briefings given to the newspapers is Keir Starmer is saying he's going to launch a policy blitz. That is going to include stressing Labour wants to move and the government wants to move closer to Europe which is a battle Labour is very happy to have because they believe the majority of the British public are in favour of that. And as we know, Kemi Badenoch snapped immediately that he went to a European meeting denouncing it, saying it was breaking Brexit by the back door. So he's happy to have that argument. I think the question mark I have in my mind is whether, from a weak position, he will think that he can save his position by throwing some cabinet ministers under the bus. And he may think that. My own view would be, if he does do that, it would be a mistake. But, you know, stranger things have happened.
That's the picture or the verdict on Labour. This is also a verdict on what we used to call the insurgent parties. You know, not now, Reform and the Greens, with both Farage and Polanski, their respective leaders, having bad headlines in recent weeks. Will that dent, do you think, what happens tomorrow?
Well, look, I think Zach Polanski's had a great year so far, seeing the Green membership soar through the roof under his helming of the party. Obviously, winning the Gorton and Denton by-election was a big boost for the Greens. But as you say, Anna, in recent weeks, headlines about the cranks that have joined the Greens from the Corbyn era, similar problems that Labour faced, and no one knows more than Keir Starmer how difficult it was to rebuild a party's reputation after, you know, getting into all sorts of difficulties with claims of anti-Semitism. Also, questions about Zach Polanski's CV and whether he has either fibbed or exaggerated his experience and his relationship with the British Red Cross and his credentials as a hypnotist or hypnotherapist. So I think that, you know, is the kind of teething problems that a new leader who's gained a lot of popularity when people start looking into their backgrounds, you know, starts to come about. For Reform, you know, Nigel Farage receiving this extraordinary £5 million personal gift from Christopher Harborne, this Thai-based investor, I think has raised a lot of eyebrows. It's such an enormous sum. Obviously, Farage has said it's to pay for his personal security. It's an unconditional gift, you know, and has no bearings on the politics or policy of the party. I think it is a concern that it wasn't registered, certainly in the views of other parties that are raising the question about whether this has broken any rules. Reform says not. I think members of the public are potentially going to find it maybe a little extraordinary to receive so much money from a single individual. So that could also potentially dent Reform.
Yes, we'll see how Teflon he is, won't we? Tomorrow, and as I said, the weekend results, Thursday overnight, Friday and into Saturday. So how might it all shape up? Let's take a look at a graph which gives us an idea of the party's best and worst outcomes. As you can see, there are two firmly on the left-hand side of your screen, which goes down to terrible, bad, OK and good. And it's certainly Labour that tips into the word terrible. Well, we've been joined now by our Chief Political Correspondent John Craig. The big picture there, John, you know, it looks like it's going to be a bad night for Labour. Potentially, we're already reading 1,850 seats, councillors going. But what should we be looking at specifically in places as well? Where's the story going to be?
Well, let's go around the UK. Let's start in Scotland, in the north, shall we? Looks like John Swinney and the Scottish National Party will comfortably be the biggest party. Will they get an overall majority like Alex Salmond won back in 2011? Probably not, but probably enough to hang on. Will Reform come second up there? Not sure about that. For Labour, of course, Anas Sarwar in February called on the Prime Minister to step down. Well, is he going to speak out again this weekend if Labour do very badly in Scotland? It's a slightly similar story in Wales because the leader there, Eluned Morgan, Baroness Morgan as she is, she's also attacked the Prime Minister. She's called for him to step down. Will she speak out at the weekend? Now, some suggestions she might lose her seat. Plaid Cymru are well on course to win there, probably with Reform second. Another bad night for Labour there. Then let's go round to the English cities, if you like. Manchester looks tricky for Labour. The Greens claim they're confident of making inroads there, where Lucy Powell's the MP, of course. Birmingham, despite solving the bin strike, throwing money at it a few weeks ago, Birmingham Labour are in trouble there. Some of these councils could go to no overall control. Now, north of England, Nigel Farage launched his English local government campaign in the borough of Sunderland. He's very confident about Sunderland. He's confident about Barnsley as well in South Yorkshire. And then coming further south, Essex, the Reform UK, very confident of doing well there. Mr Farage is pretty confident he's going to win Thurrock, and other councils like Essex County Council perhaps make gains in Basildon. And bear in mind, in Essex, it's a county with a lot of top Tories, including Kemi Badenoch. And then I suppose we come to London. I suppose we shouldn't forget the shires we heard about in Beth's report and the suburbs. Lib Dems, I was talking to Ed Davies, reasonably confident. Places where they picked up seats from the Conservatives in the general election probably do quite well there. We shouldn't underestimate the Lib Dems. Pesky little so-and-sos always often perform better than the opinion polls suggest. London, well, Greens confident in the inner city boroughs like Hackney and so on. Out in the outer suburbs, Reform hope they might get Bexley, possibly Bromley, Havering. But look out for Westminster and Wandsworth. I remember, Adam will recall this, you're too young, 1990, when the Tories were absolutely wiped out almost, but they won Westminster and Wandsworth, and Kenneth Baker, the then Tory chairman, hailed it as a great triumph and a great night for the Tories. Might we see Kemi Badenoch do the same?
And they went on to win the re-election in '92,
yes,
which is quite important.
Yeah. Yeah, John, I think the Labour Scottish leader has called for Keir Starmer to step down, but in Wales, the suggestion is, I think it was reporting in the Telegraph, wasn't it, that he might cost them the election.
That's right, that's what she claimed, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
But will she speak out at the weekend if they do badly? Possibly.
OK, right, that's interesting. The story features on a number of newspapers, including in The Eye. Unions tell Starmer... Oh, in fact, actually, you've got the Telegraph. Apologies. Unions will tell Starmer to go after a poll rout, the paper suggests. We will have a full rundown of what is in the rest of the papers at 10:30. John?
Some unions.
Some unions.
I would say.
They say they're meeting. Anyway, we'll talk about it later. There's lots of that, lots in that story. Yes, John, thanks very much indeed. We have been here before, Donald Trump teasing us with the prospect of an end to the war with Iran. The US president says the two sides are closing in on a deal which could also see an end to the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. But he has promised retribution if an agreement can't be reached. Donald Trump has been speaking about Iran at the White House this evening.
We're not going to let Iran have a nuclear weapon. We're not going to let that happen, and we won't let that happen. And so we're dealing with people that want to make a deal very much, and we'll see whether or not they can make a deal that's satisfactory to us. We have it very much under control. The blockade is unbelievable. The Navy's been incredible. The job they did, it's like a wall of steel. Nobody goes through. In particular, the Iranians, they're not getting anything through one way or the other, so they're out of business. And we'll see whether or not they are agreeing. And if they don't agree, they'll end up agreeing shortly thereafter. So that's the way it is.
That's the way it is indeed. So let us bring in our US correspondent, David Levinson. David, Project Freedom ditched, optimism about talks, threats if they fail. Here we go again. Make sense of where we are, if you can.
I'll do my best. It's been a head-spinning couple of days, really, Anna. We went from Pete Hegseth, the man who calls himself Secretary of War, and Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, so two cabinet secretaries, boasting that the war was over, and they'd shifted their focus to Project Freedom, securing safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz, to the president himself telling us that he was pausing his Project Freedom because they were making such progress in negotiations. So just how close are they to a deal? Well, in a post on Truth Social earlier today, President Trump said if Iran kept its word, then the Strait of Hormuz would be open to all in capital letters. And if they don't keep their word, then the bombing will resume with even greater intensity. Sounds like a president who's hedging his bets to me. And I also hear the sound of a can being kicked down the road. There's a lot of talk about this one-page document being drawn up, a framework for, wait for it, future negotiation on Iran's nuclear capability. Now, yesterday, Marco Rubio said they didn't have to reach a complete deal in one day. They just needed to be clear about which topics they wanted to discuss in future Sure, it felt like a throwaway comment at the time, but took on greater significance when President Trump paused Project Freedom. Throughout the day, he's been telling us that Iran badly wants a deal, that they're going to get there, but he's not going to set a deadline. But amid reports that he could detour on his way to China next week, go via Islamabad to sign any deal, he told the New York Post he'd no plan to do so because they weren't close enough to a deal. So it's a narrative that is changing every hour, and there's more than a hint of déjà vu about that.
There is indeed. David, thank you very much indeed. I mean, Lucy, what are the options now, if I can put it like that? They resume this, you know, fairly unpopular war. They cut a quick deal, the one-pager everyone's talked about today, or they continue with the US blockade, hoping that forces Iran to do something because it's so damaging to their economy. What have they always said? $500 billion a day. Yeah. I mean, there's not that, unless the Chinese can come up, because of course Trump is going to China.
Well, that's right. Of course, the impact on the US economy becomes ever more problematic for Donald Trump as he looks ahead to the midterms, you know, and the damaging prospect on the Republican Party there. I think one of the other problems, if they do get this deal over the line, and the key ask from the US is a suspension of the Iranian nuclear enrichment programme, is that he gets something that he can at least sell as being better than the deal that Barack Obama agreed that he subsequently, you know, tore up, saying it was no good. And at the moment, the sticking point is over how long the moratorium on the Iranian enrichment might last. Iran's sort of wanting it to be more like 5 years. The US are talking more like 15 plus years. So in part, it's whether they can meet in the middle. But it does feel as if there is movement in sentiment today with the IRGC's Navy statement suggesting that they've seen an end or a pause in the threat of aggression. They are willing to reopen the strait. And obviously France sending an aircraft carrier to the region and talking about accelerating moves to get this international naval protection force in the Strait of Hormuz, which, of course, the UK has also taken a leadership role in. It does feel like we could be on the precipice of some real movement.
Yes, and I think the French president has spoken to the Iranians tonight, to Pezeshkian as well, urging them to seize this opportunity. In the meantime, the world's economy holds its breath, doesn't it?
Look, it's basically a total shambles. And the truth of the matter is the Trump administration has not achieved any of its war aims. It's not led to regime change. It's not destroyed or forced the Iranians to back down on their nuclear program. And they didn't foresee this problem that's taking place in the Straits of Hormuz. And clearly, behind all the bluster, we've got the US anxious to do a deal, almost any deal, to end this process. And you know, interesting story in Lucy's paper, the Financial Times, making the point that actually US oil companies are doing fantastically well. Their exports have gone up by 20%. But the problem is, even although the United States has been saying it is self-sufficient in what it needs in terms of petrol and gas and everything else, the oil companies are quite happy to send their oil to Europe or elsewhere where they can get a higher price. So the net result is that the cost of gas, as they call it in America, is shooting towards $5 a gallon, which is, you know, seriously bad for the average American who has got a vote in November. So,
yeah, absolutely. And a president who won an election based on criticising the other side about their inflation, certainly.
Exactly. They just want to get it's quite clear now Trump just wants to, behind the bluster, he just wants to get this done.
Yeah, OK. Keep an eye on it, certainly. Now, it has emerged tonight that 2 people who had been on board the cruise liner at the centre of the deadly hantavirus outbreak have now returned to Britain and are self-isolating. But they're not showing any symptoms after potentially being exposed to the virus on the ship. The UK HSA says they're being closely monitored.
My message for the public would be, firstly, this is not at present a cause for concern for people not associated with this cruise ship. So, you know, please don't worry about it. To reassure them that we are working very, very closely with other international partners to trace and to support these individuals concerned. And I think a message of thanks to those individuals who are self-isolating and who are working with us to minimise any future risk. You know, we really appreciate their willingness to contribute to this.
Well, 3 people have died in the outbreak. Tonight, officials in Argentina have suggested the source may be a couple's bird-watching trip, which included a landfill site. Here is our science correspondent, Thomas Moore.
The 2 crew members infected by hantavirus, one of them British, were brought to shore by medics protected by full hazmat suits. Alongside them, a close contact of a passenger who died earlier this week. No chances are being taken with this deadly and unusual outbreak. They were transferred by ambulance to aircraft medically equipped to keep them stable on a flight to specialist hospitals in the Netherlands. Just over 140 people remain on board, including this passenger from Jordan.
We're still on the ship off the coast of Cape Verde. From what I understand, we're currently the biggest news story in the world, but so far everything is fine. Everyone on the ship is okay. I just wanted to reassure you that nothing has happened.
The MV Hondias left Ushuaia in Argentina on April the 1st with 150 people on board. We know that on the 11th, a Dutch passenger died at sea. The following day, the ship's captain told other passengers.
One of our passengers sadly passed away last night. Tragic as it is, it was due to natural causes, we believe. I'm told by the doctor we're not infectious.
But as the ship sailed on, the situation became more serious. On the 25th, the man's wife flew with his body from the mid-Atlantic island of St Helena to Johannesburg in South Africa. She became unwell during the flight and was admitted to hospital on arrival. She died a day later. The ship sailed on to Ascension Island, where on the 27th of April, a British man with respiratory symptoms disembarked and was flown to South Africa. He remains in a critical but stable condition. On the 2nd of May, a German national who had developed pneumonia and a fever died on the ship, which arrived in the archipelago of Cape Verde the next day, with 2 crew showing symptoms. And Swiss authorities have said there is a new case, a man who had been a passenger on the ship and developed symptoms after returning on a flight from South America. He's in a Zurich hospital. His wife is also in quarantine as a precaution. Medical authorities say it seems to be rare human-to-human spread of the Andes strain of hantavirus. The ship's owners have said it will sail for the Canary Islands, where regional authorities originally refused permission for it to dock, but that appears to have been overruled by the national Spanish government.
Once the evacuation of all the asymptomatic people has concluded in Cape Verde, the ship will continue towards the Canaries, where it's expected to arrive in the next 3 days at the secondary port of Granadilla de Abona. It's a port with very little activity. Once there, a joint sanitary evaluation and evacuation mechanism will be launched to repatriate all passengers, unless medical conditions prevent it.
The ship is expected to reach Tenerife at the weekend, the end of what was supposed to be the cruise of a lifetime, but became a medical nightmare. Thomas Moore, Sky News.
Well, certainly we're hearing that a medical evacuation flight has arrived at Amsterdam's airport this evening. It's our understanding that a British man who is on board is called Martin Anstey. He's 56. He was an expedition guide on MV Hondias. He has confirmed that he has hantavirus to us and is in hospital in the Netherlands. We've just spoken to him, actually, from the hospital, and he has said to us, I'm doing OK. I'm not feeling too bad. There are still lots of tests to be done. He said the day after tomorrow they should have a clearer picture. I have no idea how long I'll be in the hospital for. I'm in isolation at the moment. And regarding symptoms, he says, I can't say any more than at the moment. Earlier, his wife, Nicola, had spoken to the Daily Telegraph and had said it had been a very traumatic few days. He's relieved to be off the ship. He had it quite mild, then it got a bit more serious, and now he's stable again. The fear with the virus is it can deteriorate very quickly, so it's been a bit up and down for him. I don't believe he's in imminent danger now, but it was horrible. So that is the wife of Martin Anstey, who's spoken to us, and his wife Nicola has spoken to the Telegraph. I mean, it shows how desperately frightening it has been for everybody involved, including, you know, the Brits on board, 19 of them in total, and those who've been infected with this scary, scary virus.
Well, that's absolutely right. And I think we're all learning a lot about hantaviruses, aren't we, which are a family of viruses rather than a single disease, and the damage it can cause, which is damage to the kidneys and internal bleeding, as well as respiratory issues and lung damage. And, of course, a hellish experience ahead for all of those 150 passengers aboard this Dutch cruise ship who now can expect to spend at least 6 weeks in isolation. And of course, the worry here is that it's not just any old hantavirus, which can only be passed from animal to human, but it is the specific Andes strain, which can be spread from human to human. So I think we're all learning a lot more about this.
Yes, I think we've got a picture of Martin, actually. Martin Anstey, 56 years old, an expedition guide on this liner, and also, I understand, a former police officer as well. Yes, it's the Andes virus. The spread is long-tailed pygmy rice rat, I read. It is endemic in Argentina. And the suggestion now, Adam, is that patient one, as they're known, was actually on a bird-watching trip in Argentina before they boarded the vessel and potentially went to a landfill site, which is where, you know, the suspicion is now that they might have picked up this hantavirus.
Yes, indeed, 2 bird watchers may have caused that. I mean, I have to say, although it's been slow motion and very dramatic, I detect in all of this that collectively people have learned some lessons from COVID in terms of the way they're dealing with it and the caution. I mean, obviously, this is not an easily transmitted virus like COVID-19 was, but it does seem in the end that they've known how to handle it. And although some people, Cape Verde, refused to let the ship to dock, that's all been sorted out within a reasonable phrase. So obviously horrible, 3 people dead, but nonetheless, it's one of those things that seems to have been dealt with.
Yeah, it's a story that's in the papers, and next up we'll be taking a look at the front pages. Back in a moment.
urge you not to look away. If Hamas hands the hostages over, they will end this conflict. The world has been watching. Good to see you again. How are you? Did she say how he was?
The conditions are awful.
The jets were ordered to come back. Historic day here today. How will you respond if India does launch airstrikes?
They'll be all out to war.
I'm just going to put some body armor on. I'm Yalda Hakim.
Well, it's time now to see what is making the front pages of tomorrow's newspaper. So let's start with the Telegraph. It says unions, or some unions, will turn on Sir Keir Starmer after an expected local elections bloodbath. The Daily Express has an exclusive interview with Kemi Badenoch, who says the Prime Minister has been hiding during the election campaign. The Daily Mail says tomorrow will be the day that decides both Starmer and the country's fate, as fractured Britain goes to the polls. The Eye expects the Prime Minister to make a speech within weeks, signalling a closer relationship with the European Union. The Daily Mirror comes out and calls on their readers not to vote reform and say to Nigel Farage, no care, no clue, no thanks. The Guardian leads with Donald Trump's ultimatum to Iran: agree to a peace deal or face a fresh wave of bombing. Those comments from Donald Trump also on the front page of The Eye. Deal or we'll bomb you to hell. The FT says US fuel exports have surged to a record level as Europe and Asia rely on America to make up for shortfalls caused by the war with Iran. The Metro even issues a plea, save our summer, as it reports that oil prices dipped after Trump teased a potential peace deal. On the front of the Star is the news that 2 passengers on the hantavirus-stricken cruise ship have returned to the UK. The headline, rat bug victims in the UK. And that story is also on the front page of The Sun, which says people who've been exposed to the virus may have to quarantine for up to 8 weeks. So let's talk more then. Lots of politics on the papers. Not surprisingly, these are papers for polling day, including, Lucy, The Guardian, Labour set for record losses in local polls.
Well, that's right. Making clear it's going to be a pretty disastrous day for Labour if the polling companies are right. Could be particularly historic in Wales, where Labour's had control for the past 100 years in Westminster elections and certainly since devolution in 1999. And there's likely to be all sorts of records being broken, or councils that have never not been Labour in recent decades or more going to parties of all colours. The capital in particular, Labour looks like it's on track to lose individual councils to the Conservatives, the Lib Dems, the Greens and Reform. So a very, very difficult day for Keir Starmer ahead.
So what does that rout mean? I'm using the word in the Telegraph. They suggest that unions will have a meeting on Friday, I understand, where they will discuss what to do. So what is the mood music, do you think, on what is traditionally the Labour backers?
Well, it's a little bit thin, this story on sources, but we do have the new leader of Unison, Andrea Egan, saying that she's a big admirer of Andy Burnham. And that, I think, is the point, that both in public opinion polls and in surveys of Labour members and Labour supporters, if they don't have Starmer, the person they want is Burnham, and he's not available at the moment, thanks perhaps partly to the NEC's supporters of Keir Starmer telling him to stick in his post of Mayor of Manchester. So it just looks to me as if what they're all going to say is, you know, we want Burnham back in some way or another, but that, you know, will take months, if not perhaps a year, because, of course, his term is not up until 28, and the election at the latest possible time is not until 29. So unions are saying that, and actually on the front of the Daily Mail, they've got a little cartoon of Starmer on the phone saying, with a caption saying, "Think I'm bad, wait till you get Andy or Ange." And that really seems to sum it up at the moment, that they can't have Andy, they don't want Ange, so Starmer stays there for a little bit longer.
Yeah, and the Telegraph quoting Beth Rigby's interview with Lucy Powell. She went up to Manchester to do it, Labour's deputy leader, to say that Mr Burnham is an incredibly popular, relatable and effective politician and backs his return to Westminster, while still putting her backing behind Keir Starmer. I suppose for now, at least, is what you add, or we add to that, don't we? So, I mean, this is a moment of jeopardy for the PM, no doubt about it. And we'll come on to, well, why don't we go straight on to, actually, you know, what the papers are suggesting will happen, which is the front page of the Eye, if we go to that. Starmer is heading for a soft Brexit. So is this his mechanism as a fight back, do you think?
Well, it is in a sense, but the Times also has the same story as the Eye about the EU forming a key pillar of this policy reset. However, both papers stress that he will stick within his red lines from the manifesto, which are no return of free movement, no rejoining the single market or a customs union with the EU. And within those parameters, there's very little wiggle room that the EU will allow. We know that the UK accepting some dynamic alignment of rules with Brussels and paying into the EU budget will allow some closer trade cooperation, some limited better access to EU markets. But this is all really fiddling around the edges. And if that's the central premise of Starmer's reset, it's hard to see how that'll be enough.
I mean, it sounds terrible, but you remember so well from Brexit, there were 4 pillars, and you had to accept all 4 pillars, did you not, to have any buy-in with the European Union? No cherry-picking, no have your cake and eating it. Do you remember all of those, you know, people carrying notes into Downing Street with have cake and eat on it? I mean, where does he go with this, Adam? I mean,
the reality is a little bit of cherry-picking is going on at the moment. Europeans don't want to call it that, but in some sectors we are aligning with Europe and a certain amount of money is being paid. I mean, at the moment, Keir Starmer simply wants to say we want to move closer to Europe because he knows that is a political dividing line on which, frankly, at the moment he appears to be on the majority side as far as moving closer to Europe. I think the interesting question will be, over this Parliament, will Labour move towards a position of saying, well, yeah, we really could go for the customs union or the single market in the manifesto as a way of trying to get votes and actually put down a big dividing line with both Reform and the Conservatives. Is that why this is out now? So maybe I think they're moving in that direction. I mean, the Labour Party has clearly decided, having regarded talking about Europe as kryptonite, they've now clearly decided that is something which might play quite well with the voters over time.
Yes, and the Times headline, PM seeks to stamp his authority by backing closer ties with the European Union, as you suggest, clearer waters with the Tories and Reform. So what about the great challenges then? The Guardian reporting on Farage and the Metro reporting on Polanski. Why don't we do Farage first?
Well, the Guardian have totted up that he's made £2 million on top of his MP's salary since entering the Commons in 2024. And on top of the extraordinary £5 million personal gift he received earlier that year before becoming an MP, I think, you know, this has raised a lot of eyebrows, including among some Reform supporters. And I was interested this week, I spoke to Luke Trill, the director of the More in Common think tank, and he was telling me that in some recent right-leaning focus groups, voters had been talking about how they felt that Farage was becoming a bit too establishment, which is, in one sense, quite a damaging phenomenon or development for Farage when, you know, he wants to be seen as this outsider. You know, the party's called Reform. They want to come in and really change things and answer what they see as the call for change in the country. And I think this idea of him earning a lot of money while being an MP might lead to that, help entrench that idea in a way that's not helpful to the party.
I mean, the sort of, you know, the negative memes that some people are putting out about Farage are saying, look, follow the sequence. Farage says he doesn't want to be an MP. Harborne gives him £5 million. Farage runs to be an MP with a policy, if he gets elected, of helping the crypto industry, which is where Harborne came from. So it does look a little bit transparent, and that's something which I think over time could damage Nigel Farage. At the moment, I think that because Nigel Farage, in a sense, is a known quantity the revelations which are coming out about Zach Polanski, who people are just getting to know.
Well, yeah, while you're talking, do the Metro then, because he's done a mea culpa, has he, of sorts today?
Well, he did a big interview on the BBC this morning where he said that he was wrong to say that he was a spokesman for Red Cross. He didn't really have much alternative because the Red Cross have said that themselves. He did say that he had participated in fundraisers. But I think there's, a more serious issue for Zach Polanski is that support for Palestine has been the big recruiter of Corbynite and younger voters joining up on the Green Party in droves. But people are now looking at some of the things which some of the candidates have said in the past, which crosses the line into anti-Semitism, and he hasn't really got an answer on that. I mean, I
think almost a dozen have been suspended as candidates and 2 have been arrested for suspected racial hatred.
But there's lists, you can get it in the newspapers, of more than 30 candidates saying things. And, it's a real problem, I mean, frankly, because I think quite a lot of those views are in line with the views of some of the people who've joined the Green Party over the issue of Palestine. So...
OK. We've got lots more to come in the next part of our programme, including the boss of Ryanair calls on airports to stop selling early morning alcohol to cut down on drunken disruption on flights. What do you make of that?
I'm Dominic Waghorn, Sky's International Affairs Editor, covering a world that seems to be unravelling.
It's not his country, it's ours.
Sky News, the full story first, free wherever you get your news. It's half an hour now past the deadline that Hamas issued, and we've now seen a third barrage of rockets coming in.
A lot of local and national seats are up for grabs.
Waiting for the people's vote on who will sit in them.
It's your chance to have a say
on who has a seat at the table.
Follow Sky News as we give you the best seats in the House.
From voting
to the results,
the analysis,
and what comes next.
Join us for Vote 26.
Get the full story fast on Sky News.
I'm Mark Stone and I'm Sky's correspondent based here in Washington, D.C.
There seems to be some sort of a shooting, what appear to be shots fired at the White House Correspondents' Dinner.
It was a jam-packed interview. I'll tell you what he told me, and I'll explain why you can't hear the call.
100 days in and back with the grassroots of this MAGA movement.
It feels a little bit like he's a king, not a president.
He is a king.
I've witnessed the remarkable passion for politics here, but the anger too.
These immigration rates?
Unbelievable we've come to this.
So I'm observing what you're doing.
This post of Trump, it's a big shift. It's very positive.
Have you seen what Donald Trump's been up to? In the Rose Garden, in the East Wing.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist. A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan had the right to respond.
You're like, what?
A historic day here today. Congratulations, this is a huge moment. But what happens now?
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist... My darling.
Beth Rigby, Sky News.
Is being a Sky News journalist. You said to people, I'm not coming back for more, but you have come back for more. Well, let's kick off and make a statement. What can our Prime Minister say to you to not impose tariffs? He's coming out! What more do you need?
We're trying to see as much as we can.
We're in an area that's just been reclaimed
Mr. Zuma, Sky News.
People are directly protesting.
The whole neighbourhood has rallied around her.
It's been impenetrable to journalists over the last 2 years of war in Sudan.
I've been waiting for this for 2 years. It doesn't feel like a big homecoming.
It was never going to be pretty. War isn't pretty.
Is that making you thirsty? The Ryanair boss, Michael O'Leary, says airports should be banned from serving alcohol to passengers before early flights because disruptive behaviour on planes is getting worse. He says his airline is having to divert nearly one flight a day because of bad behaviour from people who've drunk too much. So we asked people in London if they would raise a glass to his proposal.
I do understand that there needs to be a limit, but also it's kind of the fun about the airport, isn't it? If you're going for a hen, you're going for a party, you have one drink to kickstart the holiday and you relax into it before your flight, so...
If they weren't to open as early, it'd still be the same issue. You know, the flights might be delayed, sort of, a later flight might be delayed rather than an earlier one. It's more about the sort of attitude rather than the actual the sort of licensing hours.
It's down to individuals, you know, if people can't handle their drink, and they should be sensible because, you know, you are going on a public service, and it's like if you see it on a bus or a train, you know, you see people drunk and then they're disruptive. It's not good for anyone, is it?
Well, former EasyJet captain Emma Henderson told Sky News some of the alcohol-fuelled violence she had seen on board her plane.
I've had to offload drunk passengers from my flights. But the worst time was when a fight broke out. We had actually pulled onto stand and were parked, and I had just left the flight deck to go and say goodbye, and a fight broke out on board, and one of the passengers headbutted another passenger and his nose was flattened into his face, and it was horrific for everybody around. And it also meant it was 3 a.m. We had to call the police, obviously. So there was a lot of paperwork. It was not very nice for everybody around. Those situations can really get big quickly as well, because people are sort of scared and they start to get involved, and it's just not a good ending to anybody's holiday, is it?
That was quite a graphic description, wasn't it? Let's be said. 3 a.m. We're talking about the 8 a.m. pint in the morning, aren't we? You see people who feel liberated after months of hard work and it's the start of their holiday. Where do you stand on this?
I'm firmly of the opinion that boozing is a great British pastime, and as you say, it's a holiday, it's the start of a trip. You shouldn't be denying people a pint in the spoons at the airport.
Yeah, Adam?
I mean, it's not at 8 a.m, but it can be close to 3 a.m. because these flights go off so early. But I would say this is Michael O'Leary sort of sloughing off responsibility onto other people. Letting drunks onto the plane is something which they should stop when people are getting on.
So you're saying, tell people, even breathalyse them?
No, not breathalyse. I mean, I frankly, I've been on planes where people behave incredibly badly, but they haven't necessarily been drunk. I mean, it's what sort of behaviour you'll tolerate from people. And it is worth remembering that, you know, back in the day, monks used to start the day with... matins, you know, with beer, and that's where they got their calories.
Or mead.
And I remember when it's a few years ago now, but when I lived in Germany, you come into Munich station in the morning and business people would be standing up at tables having a beer before going to the office because that was regarded as perfectly acceptable. They weren't drinking it to get drunk. It was like their breakfast was literally beer. So, you know, attitudes change over time.
Wow, interesting. I mean, you could have a little note on your spoons table. Other, you know, hostilleries are available, obviously, saying if you drink too much, your flight, you will not be allowed on the flight. So people have to self-moderate. Otherwise, who does police this? You know?
But I don't think you saw. I mean, I remember being in the queue to get on a plane, and someone had bought vodka duty-free, and they were necking that before we got on the plane at 6 in the morning. So.
I like the look of the oyster, caviar and champagne bars. I look longingly in the distance rather than indulging in Heathrow.
That blows the holiday budget straight away, doesn't it, to be fair? Yeah, so it is a fascinating debate. Is it the start of the holiday, do you think? I personally think, you know, in moderation. Happy days. There we are. It's making me thirsty. I'm not going to look anymore. Let's have a look at the weather.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors Sky News Weather.
So the next few days do look cool, quite cloudy and mainly dry, but there will be a risk of showers, some heavy. A chilly start then tomorrow with a patchy frost in the countryside, with eastern England looking most prone. There'll be just a few showers, mainly near western and Irish seacoasts. The Northern Isles can expect more general rain. Scotland, Ireland and Northern Ireland will see showers developing widely through the morning, while some more general showery rain will move into the increasingly windy northwest by lunchtime. England and Wales, meanwhile, look mostly dry, with sunny spells, although the odd light shower is possible in the west and southeast. Won't be quite as cool as today. And then the afternoon will bring little change. Showery rain will take over more of the northwest.
All Clear Travel Insurance proudly sponsors Sky News Weather.
Well, plenty more still to come on the wrap. We'll look ahead to voting tomorrow. We'll have more on Donald Trump's war with Iran. Is it coming to an end, or is that just his wishful thinking? And the very latest, too, on the hantavirus outbreak. We have spoken to a British man who landed tonight in Amsterdam and is currently in hospital. All of those stories to come. Plenty more from the newspapers, too. Back in a moment.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter? Perfect. Let's bring you some breaking news. Being a Sky News presenter. I began by asking,
Thank you so much.
trusting us to tell her story. The battle for number 10. Sky News has been given exclusive access. Let me give you a sneak peek. It was the day those present would never forget. Why did you decide to open up and tell your story? I urge you not to look away. If Hamas hands the hostages over, they will end this conflict. The world has been watching. Good to see you again. How are you? Did she say how he was?
The conditions are awful.
The jets were ordered to come back. Historic day here today. How will you respond if India does launch airstrikes?
They will be allowed to war.
I'm just going to put some body armor on. I'm Yalda Hakim.
Tonight on The Wrap, it is no longer a two-horse race. A last frantic day of campaigning ahead of tomorrow's elections as Reform and the Greens look to make gains at the expense of Labour and the Conservatives. Sky News speaks tonight to a British man who is recovering in hospital from a deadly virus on board the cruise ship MV Hondius, while 2 other British people are self-isolating in the UK. Donald Trump says the war will end if Iran agrees to a deal, but threatens more strikes if they don't.
We'll see whether or not they are agreeing. And if they don't agree, they'll end up agreeing shortly thereafter. So that's the way it is.
Oil prices go sky high, but the planes remain on the tarmac. Airlines are forced to cut 13,000 flights this month so far. And a gun salute to mark the 3rd anniversary of the King and Queen's coronation, but not before the military get their ducks in a row. Well, we discuss the day's biggest stories with Lucy Fisher and Adam Bolton, plus a first look at the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers, including claims that Sir Keir Starmer is planning a policy blitz with Labour braced for record losses in the elections. Well, hello, very good evening to you. Lucy, Adam, welcome as well. This time tomorrow night, of course, the polls will have closed in the biggest set of elections since the 2024 general election. 5,000 seats on 136 local councils in England are up for grabs, while voters in Scotland and Wales will elect representatives to their national parliaments. Reform UK and the Greens are expected to make gains at the expense of Labour and the Tories, with mounting pressure on Sir Keir Starmer. But his deputy, Lucy Powell, has told Sky News she backs the PM. Lucy, Adam, there is so much at stake here, Adam.
Yes, there is, and it's an election where we can't really predict the results, because once you've got 5 or in some cases 6 or 7 parties contesting it, you can win a seat perhaps with as low as 20-25% of the vote. And so one of the things it means is it's really worth casting your vote tomorrow if you've got the chance, because it will come down. Quite a lot of these seats will come down to 1 or 2 votes either way, and you don't know who's going to emerge on top. So it's going to be a very confusing picture, but the overall story, as far as we can tell, is the bulk of these seats are held by Labour, and Labour looks set for a drubbing, and no one is predicting that the Conservatives are going to go up either.
Yep, cast your vote, but fragmentation, here we come.
Well, that's right. It seems that we are now in a 5-party mainstream party landscape across the UK. Of course, that's been the case that the 2-party system has been broken in Scotland for some time. And I think in particular, while Adam's right, that often local elections lead to a sort of ragbag sequence of results coming in, often quite a mixed picture that can be difficult to make out a narrative. We are all bracing for Labour to have a real drubbing across the country, losing to Reform across the North and Midlands, losing to the Green Party in metropolitan centres, and in London, potentially losing councils to Reform, the Greens, the Lib Dems and the Conservatives. So it's not clear there's going to be any silver lining for Keir Starmer, and he faces a very, very difficult weekend and week ahead.
Indeed so. Well, plenty more to dissect in a moment. First of all, let's hear from our political editor, Beth Rigby, reporting on the final day of campaigning ahead of polling.
Out on the campaign trail for the final day ahead of a set of elections that could be truly seismic as our traditional 2-party system splits apart. Tory leader Kemi Badenoch getting out in London boroughs that were once true blue, but she's struggling to drive a Conservative recovery, her party heading for big losses across the country.
What we're seeing is the era of two-party politics moving into multi-party politics. There are no safe seats for any party. We all have to work hard for every vote. What will be a disaster is seeing more Labour, more Lib Dems, more Green, more Reform, because none of these people are serious. The only party that is serious and that has a plan, not just for local councils, but for the country, is the Conservatives.
But voters are serious in their disdain for the two traditional parties, and this man is about to do serious damage.
Vote reform, get Starmer out. If you want real change in national government and in the approach to local government, we are the change option, and we're on that ballot paper in 99.9% of wards across the United Kingdom. And you know what? We're the only true national party. We're campaigning in all parts of the UK. And I think you're going to be surprised how much enthusiasm there is for our message.
Enthusiasm too for the Green Party. Zach Polanski looking to hurt Labour in inner London.
Tonight and tomorrow we have the campaign of our life. And I want to talk about hope. But before I get to hope, I want to talk about the other side for a moment, which is despair. So let's talk about Labour.
Which I really applaud. Working the wealthy commuter belt, Ed Davey trained on the Tories as the Lib Dems eye hundreds more gains.
We really are pushing the Tories back. I think people are turning to us. And interestingly, these fights are increasingly between the Liberal Democrats and Reform, because people remember how dreadful the Conservatives were, and they're either coming to back Liberal Democrats or some going to Reform.
And it's not just England where Labour and the Conservatives are taking a hammering. In Wales, Plaid Cymru looked to wrest control of the Senedd from Labour. For the first time in nearly 3 decades of devolution, this would be a massive moment. In Scotland, Labour have lost all hope from winning Holyrood back from the SNP. This time around, the party's hoping not to be pushed into third by Reform.
Out leading from the front, I think you've got...
Labour in turmoil, embracing for punishment at the polls. The deputy leader urging the party to stick with Starmer.
We have made some mistakes. We've needed to be set out a clearer sense of direction and a clearer purpose. I think we've started to see that coming through, and I'm pleased about that. But, you know, these elections are coming round faster than that.
What I'm getting to is that you keep saying we, but isn't it that people are really upset with Keir Starmer?
Look, Keir is the leader of the Labour Party, so of course he gets the most stick of everybody. There's no question of that.
Well, he makes the decisions.
And he doesn't make all the decisions, but obviously he takes full responsibility for the decisions of the Labour Party and of the government. And he's been the first to admit where he has made mistakes, whether it was the appointment of Peter Mandelson, whether it was around the winter fuel payments. You know, that's still an issue sometimes on the doorstep with pensioners as well.
But do you think he is the right leader to lead this change agenda?
Yes.
You do?
Yeah.
These elections will perhaps be looked back on as the moment where Britain broke with its two-party system that's dominated our politics for the past century. We'll potentially have national parliaments in Wales and Scotland led by national parties as Reform rips up Labour and Tory dominance in English councils, whilst the Greens march on Labour London. And as for the governing party, Labour could be heading for its worst ever local election performance as voters give their first real ballot box verdict on Starmer's government. It's going to be ugly for Labour. How bloody it gets for Starmer depends on how his cabinet and his party react.
The PM hitting the phones to voters ahead of the polls. When the results land, his next job will be to persuade his MPs to stay with him. But that's his party's call, not his. Beth Rigby, Sky News, Bury.
Well, tomorrow's newspapers are going on this. Not surprisingly, let's take a look at the Daily Mail to start with. Fractured Britain votes. Oh, there's the Mirror, in fact. No care, no clue, no thanks. Quick change, don't waste your vote. There's the Daily Mail. Fractured Britain votes, the day that will decide Starmer's fate and Britain's. And in the meantime, Daily Express, taxi for Starmer, Starmer time surely, quoting Kemi Badenoch. John Craig is here. How might it all shape up? Let's show you a graph which gives you an idea, fundamentally, of which parties are likely to do extremely badly. There we go. And the two that are on the left-hand side of your screen are the Conservatives and Labour, down to terrible for Labour. Adam, are you expecting terrible for Labour?
Well, there are quite a lot of these heat graphs suggesting, well, you know, losing 700 seats is OK, but losing 1,500 is bad. Getting up towards losing 2,000, and that's Armageddon. So, you know, I was saying earlier on, we can't quite tell at this stage. What we don't know, and it really is a key factor, is quite how well Reform and the Greens are going to do, or whether there's actually going to be a slight peeling away from them when it comes to voting tomorrow. Also, of course, with these elections, it's a low turnout, so who actually turns out can make a big difference as well. I should just make one point that a lot of people are saying, well, you know, why is everyone talking about this being about national politics rather than about potholes and all the rest of it? Fact of the matter is that central governments under successive governments have taken so much of the financial responsibility and the limits which they put on local government that it's very, very difficult for people to, for whoever's in power to be different, as indeed Reform have discovered in Kent and elsewhere. You can't do dramatic things with poll tax, and you can't do dramatic things because you have obligations to social care and also that's all coming from central government, which is why, you know, the guys who are out there are the party leaders, and they're seeing this as a mass opinion poll, certainly in England, rather than a local government election. It's not the fault of the media, it is the fault of central government politicians who have increasingly put local government in straitjacket.
Yeah, very interesting. We will no doubt be extrapolating the national equivalent vote as if it was a general election as well, because this is a weather vane moment for Keir Starmer and all the political parties. Will it matter, do you think, if Scotland and Wales vote for nationalist parties? And what does that mean for the UK?
Well, look, you know, the SNP are already in charge at Holyrood, so it will be continuity there. In Wales, I think it's very interesting that Plaid Cymru have stepped back from suggesting they would bring an independence referendum into a first term of control at the Senedd in Cardiff. In some ways, it's almost more damaging for Labour that you've got this nationalist party that's offering a fairly similar prospectus, progressive, liberal, social democratic, that sort of takes away from Labour's support in a big way on the ground there, and shows just how unpopular Labour has become after being the biggest party in Wales for 100 years. I think that will be a really historic moment if the polls are borne out.
Yes, it was Nicola Sturgeon, wasn't it, who said that a win for the SNP in these elections for Holyrood would indicate support for independence again and a second referendum. But, I mean, that whether they get a majority. Adam, you wanted to say something?
Well, I was just going to say, you know, people will talk about Scottish independence, but simple truth is it makes absolute sense for the voters in the nations to vote for nationalist parties, because that increases their leverage on the centre in terms of getting money and attention from the centre.
So you're saying it's a pressure moment, that's what it's for?
Well, I'm saying I do not believe that all those people who vote for the SNP, or indeed, certainly we know, because Plaid Cymru itself says this, I don't think they all want independence tomorrow. What they want is to leverage more out of the Treasury.
We've talked Scotland, Wales. What about England? You know, where's voting? Where do we keep an eye out for, John? And where are you going to be?
I'm going to be in Essex,
where
Nigel Farage is hoping to do very well. There are only 6 councils declaring overnight tomorrow night in Essex. Quite a few more on the Friday afternoon, including one that Mr Farage is pretty confident he's going to win, Thurrock. There are others, Basildon, Essex County Council and so on, where they're hoping to do well. They might take control of Essex County Council. But the Reform have been strong in Essex. It's where Mr Farage's seat is, up in Clacton. And, of course, it's also the county where, of course, a lot of top Tories, not just Kemi Badenoch, but her attack dog, as I call him, Alex Burkhart, the chief whip, Rebecca Harris, and grandees like John Whittingdale and Bernard Jenkin. So it's a crucial battleground, that. Now, you go further north, and Mr Farage is hoping to do well in Barnsley in South Yorkshire, in Sunderland up in the northeast of England, where he launched his local government election campaign. So the reform definitely will do well. All the signs are. He's fought nobody has travelled more around the country. OK, it's easy when you've got £5 million in your back pocket, but...
and you don't appear on national television, but anyway, that's by the by as well.
But anyway, but in the big cities, Labour could be vulnerable in Birmingham and Manchester. The Greens claim they're going to do well there. The bin strike probably came too late to save Labour there. The leafy shires, where the Liberal Democrats picked up a lot of seats in the general election. Ed Davies obviously hoping to do well. He's been around Surrey and those parts today and the last few days. And then London. London's always an interesting battleground. 32 boroughs up for election, and the Greens will hope to do well in places like Hackney and in the cities where perhaps there's a lot of left-wing voters who perhaps were once Corbynistas, now Green supporters. But Wandsworth and Westminster... I know I keep coming back to these two, but in 1990, of course, the Tories did dreadfully everywhere, but they won Wandsworth and Westminster. Those two went Labour 4 years ago. If they can get those back, no doubt Kemi Badenoch will do what Kenneth Baker did in 1990 and say, what a great night we've had. Can I just make a comment on the newspapers? I thought I was political editor of the Daily Express during the 1990s.
Right.
I detect more recently they've been flirting with reform. I think it's interesting they've got a big picture of Kemi Badenoch on the front page and not Nigel Farage.
Oh, I think they're firmly in the Conservative camp still, John.
Yeah, Mirror's got a picture of Nigel Farage on the front. They really think it will put people off, I don't know.
Exactly. And later in the newspapers, we'll be talking about what Keir Starmer's battle plan for next week might be. It's also on the front of the Telegraph, as well as we've seen a number of newspapers, about what the unions might do about it too. So we'll talk more about that at past. John, thank you very much. Now, Sky News has tonight spoken to a British passenger taken ill from a deadly virus on the cruise ship MV Hondius. Martin Anstey was speaking from his hospital bed in the Netherlands. Well, let's bring in our correspondent, Molly Malone. And Molly, our understanding is that this evacuation flight landed in Amsterdam. This British man was on board. What are we learning about his condition?
Yeah, that's right. The developments in this story, it's moving at pace. The latest, as you say, is that we've spoken to one of the 3 people that have been evacuated from this infected cruise ship as of today. It's a British man called Martin Anstey. He was working with the expedition team on board the cruise ship. And as you say, we've spoken to him from his hospital in the Netherlands. And he's told Sky News that he's feeling OK, that he's still waiting for lots of tests to be done and expects by Friday to have a slightly clearer picture as to his condition. He's being kept in isolation at the moment in this hospital in the Netherlands. He's one of 3 people that have been evacuated today. He says it isn't clear how long he's going to be in hospital for. He hasn't said much more about his symptoms, but has said he's doing OK. Now, the cruise operator saying tonight that 2 of those evacuated from the ship to the Netherlands have made it to the Netherlands, and one of the 3 is facing a delay on their way to the Netherlands. As we know, this is a virus outbreak that has killed 3 people, taken the lives of 3 people. And just to briefly remind people, because until a few days ago, lots of people won't have been familiar with hantavirus. It's normally a virus spread by rodents when people come into contact with urine droppings from rodents. It is said to be much more rare, but can be pass between contact with humans. We have also heard tonight from the UK Health Security Agency. They say 2 people that had been on board the cruise ship have returned to Britain and are self-isolating. They aren't showing symptoms, but the UK Health Security Agency say that they are being closely monitored. 150 people are still on board that ship. They're asymptomatic at the moment, thought to be isolating in their cabins. And this is a ship ship that, as of now, is on its way to the Canary Islands from Cape Verde. That journey expected to take a few days.
Molly, thank you very much indeed. Yes, those 2 people in the UK seem to have, got off earlier, made their way back independently, self-isolating. And it seems from UK authorities that once this vessel lands, they're suggesting in Tenerife, then the remaining British nationals can then return to the UK if they're not showing symptoms. Health officials said once the ship docks in Tenerife, the remaining British nationals can be repatriated if they do not develop symptoms. None of the British citizens on board are currently reporting symptoms, but they are being closely monitored. I mean, this has just been an extraordinary tale. The suggestion now, Adam, is that the first 2 people who were taken sick had been on a bird-watching tour to a landfill site in Argentina. I mean, it's just, a terrible sequence of events.
Yeah, and also suggesting that climate change has made this disease, as in others, slightly more rife because it's a bit hotter in Argentina, and therefore the disease and the sort of mini rats, aren't they, that are supposed to be distributing this. So clearly, it is a very worrying time. And we also learned that there's someone who's a passenger who flew home to Switzerland who's now showing symptoms. But it does not appear that this disease is spreading in the way that, obviously we saw during the pandemic with COVID-19. So that, that has to be good news. It looks like they've contained it.
Yes, this form of hantavirus is the Andes variant, which is human-to-human transmissible. It's the long-tailed pygmy rice rat, I read, Adam. And it is endemic in Argentina. But, I mean, the concern is, of course, that it's got this great long incubation period of now, I mean, yesterday we were saying up to 6 weeks. Now they're suggesting up to 8 weeks.
So that means that the ordeal for the 150 passengers left on board this Dutch cruise ship, once they're disembarked, doesn't end there. They've got to self-isolate for at least that length of time. And the symptoms can deteriorate quickly, we understand. And ultimately, there are 2 different strands of illness that hantaviruses can cause. One is internal bleeding and kidney failure. The other is respiratory issues and permanent lung damage. So a really nasty family of viruses. And the Andes virus, as you say, Anna, particularly damaging because it's not just animal to human, it's human-to-human transmission too.
Yes, and Martin Anstey, who we've spoken to tonight, now in hospital in Amsterdam, being closely monitored. So, obviously we wish him well. Now, lots more still to come. Could there be a peace deal between Iran and the US, or have we been here before?
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist... Hi, darling.
Beth Rigby, Sky News.
Is being a Sky News journalist. You said to people, I'm not coming back for more, but you have come back for more. Well, let's kick off and make a statement. What can our Prime Minister say to you to not impose tariffs? He's coming out! What more do you need?
We're trying to see as much as we can.
We're in an area that's just been reclaimed.
Mr. Zuma, Sky News.
People are directly protesting. The whole neighborhood is rallied around her.
It's been impenetrable to journalists over the last 2 years of war in Sudan.
I've been waiting for this for 2 years. It doesn't feel like a big homecoming.
It was never going to be pretty. War isn't pretty.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter? Perfect. Let's bring you some breaking news. Being a Sky News presenter. I began by asking...
Thank you so much.
...trusting us to tell her story. The battle for number 10. Sky News has been given exclusive access. Let me give you a sneak peek. It was the day those present would never forget. Why did you decide to open up and tell your story?
Now, it certainly feels like we've been here before. Donald Trump teasing us with the prospect of an end to the war with Iran. Speaking tonight at the White House, the US president says the two sides are closing in on a deal which could also see an end of the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz.
We're not going to let Iran have a nuclear weapon. We're not going to let that happen. And we won't let that happen. And so we're dealing with people that want to make a deal very much, and we'll see whether or not they can make a deal that's satisfactory to us. We have it very much under control. The blockade is unbelievable. The Navy's been incredible. The job they did is like a wall of steel. Nobody goes through. In particular, the Iranians, they're not getting anything through one way or the other, so they're out of business. And we'll see whether or not they are agreeing. And if they don't agree, they'll end up agreeing shortly thereafter. So that's the way it is.
That's the way it is. We hear from our US correspondent then, David Blevins.
It's been a head-spinning couple of days, really, Anna. We went from Pete Hegseth, the man who calls himself Secretary of War, and Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, so two cabinet secretaries, boasting that the war was over and they'd shifted their focus to Project Freedom, securing safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz, to the President himself telling us that he was pausing his Project Freedom because they were making such progress in negotiations. So just how close are they to a deal? Well, in a post on Truth Social earlier today, President Trump said if Iran kept its word, then the Strait of Hormuz would be open to all in capital letters. And if they don't keep their word, then the bombing will resume with even greater intensity. Sounds like a president who's hedging his bets to me. And I also hear the sound of a can being kicked down the road. There's a lot of talk about this one-page document being drawn up, a framework for, wait for it, future negotiation on Iran's nuclear capability. Now, yesterday, Marco Rubio said they didn't have to reach a complete deal in one day. They just needed to be clear about which topics they wanted to discuss in future. It felt like a throwaway comment at the time, but took on greater significance when President Trump paused Project Freedom. Throughout the day, he's been telling us that Iran badly wants a deal, that they're going to get there, but he's not going to set a deadline. But amid reports that he could detour on his way to China next week, go via Islamabad to sign any deal, he told the New York Post he'd no plan to do so because they weren't close enough to a deal. So it's a narrative that is changing every hour, and there's more than a hint of déjà vu about that.
Yep, I think we agree with that, don't we, Adam?
Yeah, we do. And, you know, I think the reality is that America has not achieved its aims in this war. It hasn't destroyed the nuclear capability, hasn't seen regime change in Iran, and it's causing economic damage all round. So they want to wind this down. Trump, of course, bombastic as ever, wants to claim a victory. But it looks like, at the very best, he's not going to get a deal any better on terms of nuclear disarmament than the JCPOA, which, of course, Obama's deal that he rejected. But he's going to have the added bonus, or negative bonus, if you like, of having damaged the world's economy and showing Iran that it has a chokehold on the Strait of Hormuz, which gives it significant political leverage. There is some hope, apparently. David mentioned there the summit, which is going to in China. I mean, there's some suggestion...
Mid-month, yeah.
Yeah, that he may actually want or try and persuade the Chinese to lean on Iran, because they're big customers of Iran oil, to do a deal on nuclear, which is a bit of a turn-up for the books, really.
Yes, indeed. And on that chokehold, just quickly, we know the French president has spoken to Pezeshkian, the Iranian leader, suggesting, again, it is incumbent on all parties to open and give free flow to ships in the Strait of Hormuz. But we sit and wait, don't we? The economy waits.
We do. I mean, there are signs that the market is taking this seriously. The price of oil fell to a two-week low, just above $104 today. And also interesting to my mind that officials from the Elysee seem to have been briefing tonight that the British-led efforts to set up an international naval protection force in the Strait of Hormuz, once hostilities end in a more permanent sense, is being accelerated. The French are sending an aircraft carrier to the region, so that does suggest they think there could be some movement soon to open that crucial sea lane and for them to sort of start helping to police the waterways and restore confidence to global shipping.
Yes, and in fact, the Speaker of Iran's parliament has just responded to Donald Trump announcing an end to Operation Project Freedom. He says, Operation Trust Me Bro failed. Now back to routine with Operation, how do you pronounce that? Foxios?
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
I mean, it is worth saying that Operation Freedom did fail because ships were attacked.
Yeah. OK. Are we looking at the papers now? OK, let's have a look at the papers. So, the Telegraph, to start with, leads with unions saying they'll turn on Keir Starmer after an expected local elections bloodbath. The Express has an exclusive interview with Kemi Badenoch, who says the Prime Minister has been hiding during the election campaign. Daily Mail says tomorrow will be the day that decides both Starmer and the country's fate, as fractured Britain, as they call it, votes. The Eye expects the Prime Minister to make a speech within weeks, signalling a closer relationship with the EU. The Daily Mirror comes out and calls on their readers not to vote Reform and say to Nigel Farage, no care, no clue, no thanks. The Guardian leads with Donald Trump's ultimatum to Iran: agree to a peace deal or face a fresh wave of bombing. Those comments from Trump also making the front page of The Times. Financial Times says US fuel exports have surged to a record level as Europe and Asia rely on America to make up for shortfalls caused by the war with Iran. Metro issues a plea, save our summer, as it reports that oil prices dipped after Trump teased of a potential peace deal. Front of the Star is the news that 2 passengers on the hantavirus-struck cruise ship have returned to the UK. Rat bug victims in UK, their headline. Same for The Sun. Cruise Brits rat bug hell, suggesting those who have been exposed to the virus may have to quarantine for up to 8 weeks. So the news in some of the newspapers and reports online as well is that Keir Starmer might seize momentum next week after the election result with some big policy drive. The papers are suggesting it is, Lucy, towards the European Union.
Well, that's right. And we know at a time of such straitened fiscal circumstances, there isn't a lot of money to spend on a big retail giveaway. So it looks like Starmer is hoping to make a signal towards a softer Brexit, but within very limited parameters. This story in the Eye and a similar one in the Times both stress Downing Street sources saying that he will stick within the manifesto red lines of not returning to free movement, the single market or customs union. And within those red lines, there's not so much. that he can do. I also think, for what it's worth, while he has started soft signalling Starmer that the UK is willing to dynamically align in sectors where he says it's in the national interest to do so in order to gain easier access to European markets, I think that hasn't dawned on a lot of the public, and I think the idea that we reprise some of the rounds of the Brexit era about being rule takers, not least when we've left the club and don't have a say in the rules being formed, let alone a veto, will make a bigger round. And the fact that we'll have to agree to pay into EU budgets as well. I think there's going to be more of a backlash from the Brexiteer squadron from that.
Yeah, it's on the top of the front of the Times as well, if we go in. PM seeks to stamp his authority by backing closer ties with the European Union. We've got a quote, actually, from number 10 on that tonight. Building a closer relationship with the EU is crucial, not just for economic growth, but also cutting the cost of living. We cannot afford to ignore this, suggesting it will be a growth driver, which has been sadly lacking, it seems, in the backwash of Labour policies, Adam.
Well, I think it's generally recognised that Brexit has been a growth destroyer, and therefore, I suppose, if you could reinstate pretty much seamless trade with Europe, that obviously would be a stimulator, because we do know that a number, particularly of small and medium-sized businesses, have either gone out of business themselves or simply said that they can't face the bureaucracy of exporting or importing from Europe. So clearly, if those barriers come down, then there'll be more economic activity, and that leads to growth.
Yeah.
Interesting, I think, that in a sense, Labour have proposed this, and the Conservatives, led by Kemi Bainlock, have eagerly run to the other side of the battle lines. I mean, both of them clearly think that there's something in gelling up their supporters if they take a position and rehearse the Brexit wars again.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it, as a tactic. Page 6 of the Eye, the main story on that page is Prime Minister set to signal that the UK is on a path to a softer Brexit. It also says that pollsters suggest that nationalists could lead all three devolved nations, if we just romp through the other headlines ahead of tomorrow.
Well, absolutely. Of course, in Northern Ireland, it's Sinn Féin leader Michelle O'Neill who's First Minister, with the SNP looking likely to remain the largest party in Holyrood, and Plaid Cymru potentially on track for a very good night in Wales. I think it is a very striking blow to unionists in the UK that's how it will
I mean, this
play
is
out.
a comment from the sainted Sir John Curtis, but I have to say it's not exactly Mystic Meg stuff when, as Lucy says, you've already got Sinn Féin in Ireland and you've got the SNP and Plaid Cymru ahead in polls in Scotland and Wales. I mean, no surprise there.
I know you nearly said something else, but anyway, yeah. In the meantime, the Prime Minister has taken this opportunity, or this time, to write to the civil service and suggest that it's time to heal the rift, saying, we know this period has been deeply unsettling for you, Ad. I mean, you know, it's been unsettling because the Prime Minister has decided to fire certain people.
Yeah, I mean, this is a sort of lengthy open letter that he sent saying to those who feel exposed by recent scrutiny, let me say this, I value speaking truth to power. Now, the point about that is what has unsettled the civil service is that Ollie Robbins has been fired and effectively being used as a shield, taking the blame for the appointment of Peter Mandelson, even though he wasn't in the government when Keir Starmer announced it. That's what's unsettled people. But, of course, Keir Starmer says he should have been kept informed of the discussions about Mandelson's security vetting, which, of course, is code for I welcome speaking truth to power. So he's still trying to have it both ways. But, you know, the reality is you don't have to go far in Whitehall before you meet someone who thinks that, to use his own word, Ollie Robbins was fired and was a scapegoat.
OK. So polls close 10 tomorrow. I'll be here then. Special programme on Sky News from midnight too. John Craig in Essex, as we all heard earlier. Should we squeeze a quick one in before the break, which is on the front page of the Daily Telegraph. Secondary school pupils are being taught it is their responsibility not to offend other people.
Well, look, I think it's easy to scoff at stories like this, but this is a GCSE revision guide for citizenship studies. And I think that given the coarsening of public debate, fuelled by social media, perhaps anonymity and people being quick to fly into rage, being self-radicalised, forced into echo chambers, that actually teaching teenagers that they have a freedom, but with that comes responsibility to be courteous, respectful, and not to go out of their way to use that freedom of speech to offend others, to my mind, seems eminently sensible.
Yeah, I mean, it follows their story last night, which is that nurseries are being told to look out for racism in under fives.
Yeah,
so they're on a mission with this, aren't they? The Telegraph.
That's the issue. You have to see whether it's a bit of a gag on people. Not being able to take political positions. I think the overall point of it is that an awful lot of people have, we become self-centred where people talk about their truth, asserting that.
Who could you possibly be quoting?
And that doesn't take consideration of the fact that it may be offensive to other people.
OK, lots more to come in the next part of our programme. Back in a moment.
I urge you not to look away. If Hamas hands the hostages over, they will end this conflict. The world has been watching. Good to see you again. How are you? Did she say how he was?
The conditions are awful.
The jets were ordered to come back. Historic day here today. How will you respond if India does launch airstrikes?
They'll be all out to war.
I'm just going to put some body armor on. I'm Yalda Hakim.
Well, we're looking at what is making tomorrow's newspapers, including in the Eye, Adam, which tells us that the media tycoon, the founder of CNN, Ted Turner, has died.
Yeah, this is the man who launched the world's first 24-hour news channel, cable news network, CNN, should say.
Yeah.
Sky News, the world's second 24-hour news channel.
Were they 46 years ago, did I hear? And is Sky 37 years ago or something like that?
And although he fell out with Rupert Murdoch, Ted Turner did say at the time of the launching of Sky News that in order to make this a success, Rupert Murdoch would have to be prepared to, quote, hemorrhage red ink, which was a fairly dramatic message that you don't necessarily make money in this. He built up, it was originally his father's billboard company, and he turned it through radio, went into television. Interesting thing about him is that he was a liberal. We now, when we look at the tech bros, they're all pretty conservative, don't believe in giving their money away, whereas Ted Turner actually gave money to the United Nations and all those things. And, of course, being a liberal, one of his wives was the actress Jane Fonda. It didn't last too long, but Jane Fonda to this day says he was her favourite husband.
Brilliant. And obviously there are now concerns about, you know, the future ownership of CNN and how it changes. Exactly. So it's a, you know, and the Trump administration can't wait, is what they've literally said, isn't it? So it's a story we've already talked about. Call time on early airport boozing to stop rowdiness. It's the 8 a.m. breakfast pint that Michael O'Leary has concerns about, is it, Lucy?
Well, I'm more interested in hearing about the private airports, as your producer knows about, Anna, where they sell champagne from a vending machine. But no, this is about your Stansted and Lutons and so forth, where people are going on early flights and having a pint to kick off their holiday, and I don't blame them.
I mean, back in the day, when we used to have tight licensing laws, trains used to be the only place that you could get drinks out of hours, and they used to have drink compartments on trains, and certain people used to go up and down on the train all the time because they get a drink. And in fact, there was an Ealing comedy called the Titchfield Thunderbolts, which is centred around being able to use transport for a drink. And you know, I suppose if you want a drink at 4 in the morning, probably an airport is the only alternative if you can't find a...
It's an expensive pint if you've got to add a flight to the price of it, isn't it? Let's talk about the Princess of Wales, who we are told will travel to Italy next week, and this is her first official overseas engagement since her cancer treatment. She's been out and about today as well, hasn't she? So, yes. I mean, it's good news, isn't it, in terms of recovery of this?
It's certainly good news. Yeah, it's her first solo foreign trip for more than 3.5 years. She's going to Italy to campaign on early years education, which, of course, has become a key theme that she's drawing attention to with the enormous media coverage she garners around the world. So, yeah, a really good moment.
And one of those classic pictures on the front of the Times of the Princess of Wales, you know, who also in East London was working on this whole question of child brain development. It's quite clear, I think that's an area she's going to concentrate on.
Wow, interesting. 10 seconds on the Pope and the bank, if you can. Sorry it's so quick.
Well, amazingly, the humility of the Pope called up his bank back in Chicago, where he hadn't been able to return in person after being in the papal conclave, elected the Pope. When he rang and gave his name, Robert Prevost, they didn't recognise that and said he'd have to come in person. When he said, would it help if I explain I'm the Pope, they hung up on him.
Oh, there you go. Adam Bolton, Lucy Fisher, as ever, thank you so much. Have the sport next. Harry Kane on target for Bayern Munich. We'll have the details of that.
I'm Dominic Waghorn, Sky's International Affairs Editor, covering a world that seems to be unravelling.
It's not his country, it's ours.
Sky News, the full story first, free wherever you get your news. It's half an hour now past the deadline that Hamas issued, and we've now seen a third barrage of rockets coming in.
A lot of local and national seats are up for grabs.
Waiting for the people's vote on who will sit in them.
It's your chance to have a say
on who has a seat at the table.
Follow Sky News as we give you the best seats in the House.
From voting
to the results,
the analysis,
and what comes next.
Join us for Vote 26.
Get the full story fast on Sky News.
I'm Mark Stone and I'm Sky's correspondent based here in Washington, D.C.
There seems to be some sort of a shooting, what appear to be shots fired at the White House Correspondents' Dinner.
It was a jam-packed interview. I'll tell you what he told me, and I'll explain why you can't hear the call.
100 days in and back with the grassroots of this MAGA movement.
It feels a little bit like he's a king, not a president.
He is a king.
I've witnessed the remarkable passion for politics here, but the anger too.
These immigration rates?
Unbelievable we've come to this.
I'm observing what you're doing.
This post of Trump, it's a big shift. It's very positive.
Have you seen what Donald Trump's been up to? In the Rose Garden, in the East Wing.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist. A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan had the right to respond.
You're like, what?
Historic day here today. Congratulations, this is a huge moment. But what happens now?
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist... Hi, darling.
Beth Rigby, Sky News.
Is being a Sky News journalist. You said to people, I'm not coming back for more, but you have come back for more. Well, let's kick off and make a statement. What can our Prime Minister say to you to not impose tariffs? He's coming out! What more do you need?
We're trying to see as much as we can.
We're in an area that's just been reclaimed. Mr. Zuma, Sky News.
People are directly protesting.
The whole neighborhood has rallied around her.
It's been impenetrable to journalists over the last 2 years of war in Sudan.
I've been waiting for this for 2 years. It doesn't feel like a big homecoming.
It was never going to be pretty. War isn't pretty.
So who will Arsenal face in the Champions League final? Let's find out. Here's Mike.
James, can you do a big clap in front of your face? Perfect. OK, mate, in your own time.
One word to describe James Milner.
Legend. Unique.
Consistent. Dedicated.
Intense.
Brilliant.
He just loves to win.
I think he's everything you'd want to be in a footballer.
The Premier League loves James Milner.
Hi James, congratulations on breaking the all-time Premier League appearance record and how hard it is to keep going. You've done phenomenal, so well done.
To be appreciated by your teammates and appreciate what you give, that's pretty special.
England's future looks healthy, and here at Leeds United's training ground, they reckon they're once again grooming tomorrow's World Cup stars.
The board now are realising that you've got to have your money in your academy, you've got to believe in it, because the spiralling costs of everything within the game, I think you've got to try and bring people through that you've blooded yourself.
Yeah, it was an amazing time being in the academy, and then you're seeing the likes of those guys come through. I remember Alan Smith scoring his first touchdown for he was my hero. From being really young and going with my family, and as a Leeds fan, you know, it was a dream really being at the club and being in the academy of a team you supported.
James had a mentality that you would associate with an older, good professional.
Lucky enough to sign the old YTS back then at Leeds, and then we ended up sharing a room together. It was only Phils and Orsies, and then I think it was on the old PlayStation. We had a snooker game and we were obviously competitive and trying to get 147.
It was a training session basically, and this young lad got called in, and straight away you're all having a look at him, you know, what's he like, whose team's he going to be on. I would say 10 minutes into him coming over from, I think it might have been under 12s then, how old was he? He's only like 16, wasn't he? He did this one thing straight away, and everyone straight away went, oh, who's this lad here?
Young James Milner's only 16.
Didn't think I was going to get on, and to be fair, Terry gave me the nod to go on. Lee Bowyer passed me a ball with my back to goal, and I tried to pass it back and passed it to Paolo Di Canio, and he put it over the bar, thank God. And just remember Bo afterwards asking, did I have a bet on 4-all? I can't remember too much about being nervous playing against other Premier League players, because for me Leeds were an amazing team, and seeing Wayne Rooney doing what he was doing at that time, that obviously showed you again it was possible and someone else was doing it, and made you even more eager to go and train really well and take your chance when you got it on the pitch.
Goal for Leeds, and it's the youngster James Milner.
He's travelled a long way to get in the 6-yard box to finish that off, and I think that is typical of the type of player he is.
Mike, thank you. Here's the weather.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors Sky News weather.
Well, the next few days look cool, quite cloudy, mainly dry, but there will be a risk of showers, some heavy. There'll be a chilly start tomorrow with a patchy frost in the countryside, with eastern England looking most prone. There'll be just a few showers, mainly near Western and Irish Sea coasts. The Northern Isles can expect more general rain. Scotland, Ireland and Northern Ireland will see showers developing widely through the morning, while some more general showery rain will move into the increasingly windy northwest by lunchtime. England and Wales, meanwhile, look mostly dry with sunny spells, although the odd light shower is possible in the west and southeast.
All Clear Travel Insurance proudly sponsors Sky News weather.
Well, that was the wrap. Thank you so much for watching. Back tomorrow after polls close, 10 p.m. All the top stories, though, coming up right here now on Sky News at midnight.
I urge you not to look away. If Hamas hands the hostages over, they will end this conflict. The world has been watching. Good to see you again. How are you? Did she say how he was?
The conditions are awful.
The jets were ordered to come back. Historic day here today. How will you respond if India does launch airstrikes?
They'll be allowed to war.
I'm just going to put some body armor on. I'm Yalda Hakim.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter?
Perfect.
Let's bring you some breaking news. Being a Sky News presenter. I began by asking.
Thank you so much.
Trusting us to tell her story. The battle for number 10. Sky News has been given exclusive access. Let me give you a sneak peek. It was the day those present would never forget. Why did you decide to open up and tell your story?